Shall we begin?
Why not? Welcome to Frankie Sense and More. It's like she's got a whole lot of goodness for you with a little bit of sass.
Frankie, did you just say...
She sure did. Not to mention, along with...
Whoops.
Join us now as Frankie Picasso and her new co-host mix it up with authors, musicians, and interviews with world-changing people.
Let's begin, pal.
Okay, let's begin now, because it only makes sense.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Frankie Sense and More. Riding shotgun with me today is one of my favorite radio hosts. You may know her from Military Mom Talk, Motherhood Talk, Coach Radio, and my favorite show, Powered Up. Please welcome my good friend, the inimitable Sandra Beck. Sandra?
Wow, inimitable. I think I'm going to have to look that one up.
Yeah, that's a good word, and it really describes you. Can I share? I have to share something with the folks here. Sandra, I'm not going to out you, but Sandra shared a photo this week on Facebook where she was cocooned from head to toe in a red and white furry blanket, looking for all the world like she'd just been found on an ice floe in the North Pole. Now, I live in Canada, home of the igloo, as the Americans think, and Sandra lives in California, not exactly, the North Pole.
Oh, Southern California at that.
Yeah. So I was racking my brain as to how to help her, because we don't want her to freeze to death. And then it hit me. Sandra, you look like you were having a 3-dog night. And so I was thinking, if we got each of your boys 2 dogs and your dad 3, then we could send you 11-dog sled team to keep you and your family warm. What do you think? Some Malamutes would be good, run around the ranch. And
yeah. Malamutes, husky, you name it. I was freezing. We have, with the El Nino, we have unseasonable cold here. It was 31, and I have an architectural home with floor-to-ceiling windows, 2 stories, and we were like Nanook from the west. It was, or the east. It was an ice sculpture happening in my kitchen.
I felt so bad for you, and we are actually experiencing a warm flow of air, which is just brilliant for December. It's like 5 degrees Celsius today, so it feels wonderful. Can't even begin to tell you. We have a great show for you today, folks. You got to make sure you stick around. Rhys Thomas is here, as well as best-selling author Diann Mills. And Rhys is going to be sharing with us how to find clarity and our purpose in life through his latest book and program, Discover Your Purpose, How to Use the 5 Life Purpose Profiles to Unlock Your Hidden Potential to Live the Life You Were Meant to Live. And Rhys Thomas is a visionary and author, speaker, trainer in the energy medicine field. And he's also the founder of Rhys Thomas Institute of Energy Medicine and the creator of the Rhys Method, a powerful system, self-discovery, transformation, and healing. And we know that he's had many successes in his life. We like to follow successful people. He's had a career as a professional tennis player, a coach, a business owner. He's an author, husband, father, public speaker, martial artist. I'll have to talk to you about that and much, much more about Rhys in just a moment. I just want to tell you a little bit about Diann so that we can all get in on the conversation. As mentioned, outstanding author and delightful lady Diann Mills. Can't wait to meet her. She has this amazing philosophy about her books, and we're going to give you, I think it will give you good insight into the real woman herself. She states that her readers should expect an adventure. So she combines unforgettable characters with unpredictable plots to create action-packed, suspense-filled novels like her latest, Deadlock, which I just finished and is really a great, great read. Diann herself graduated from Houston's FBI Citizens Cadet Academy. That tells you something about her. She's also the recipient of 2 Christie Awards. The Library Journal presented her with Best Books 2014. She's also the president 2015 of the Romance Writers of America's Faith, Hope, and Love chapter, and is a founding board member for American Christian Fiction Writers and a member of the Advanced Writers and Speakers Association, International Thriller Writers, and, as I said, the FBI Citizens Academy. So that's pretty cool, and we're going to speak to her in just a moment. But she did say one thing in her profile, and I'm going to segue this back to you, Rhys. She said, I always dreamed of becoming a writer, but I didn't have the courage to take the first step. Now, Rhys, I know that you've met thousands of folks like Diann who didn't have the courage at one time in their lives to take that first step. And I think that this does tie into your book in the 5 profiles, because you state that you show people a 3-step process. 1, how to clarify their purpose and direction. 2, increase their vital energy and passion. And 3, develop that courage to live a life with no excuse or apologies. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, of course, we all have infinite amounts of courage when we access the truth within us. Sort of what I talk about is you're discovering your purpose isn't figuring out what job you're going to have next month or next year and how that's going to pay you and that stuff, even though it will have a job and a price tag usually with whatever you do in the world and what you share. But to have the courage to start writing, Diann needed to discover, if she didn't have the courage to do it, it was because she was unclear about who she was and what her message was. And a lot of people say, I want to write a book, but they don't really, but they want to write a book based on what they think they ought to write, and it always falls short, and they get writer's block, or they write it, and it's just like it doesn't sound good, or they hand it to an editor, and the editor says, "Well, this is we need more. What's underneath this?" And so for me, just whether you want to write a book or want to have a great relationship, or you want to find a career that you're proud of, or whether you want to have better health. There's one key ingredient that you have to discover, and that's what makes you tick. What's the why you're here? What's this deeper quality within you that when you know that quality within you, of course, you will write a book, and that will be the only thing in there in the book. It'll be talking about this. You're describing your way of seeing the world that then gives everyone else the opportunity to sort of stand on your shoulders and see from that vantage point. But if you're just writing something that you think you ought to write and that everybody else has written, and you've taken the writing course in how to write a book, you'll get it done, but it won't have the juice. It won't fulfill you. And I know, because the book that I wrote, Discover Your Purpose, it took me about 15 years to write it because I kept trying to write somebody else's book. And then when I finally discovered who I was, this book, fell into place. Over 5 years, it fell into place, and became much clearer that this is the message that I need to do. The problem with my message is that it's so complicated that to say it well and to help people understand the way my brain thinks, it takes a little doing.
Well, and Rhys, I just want to pop in here. This is Sandra. I think it's so amazing for you to come out and say, after you've had, different successful careers in your life, to say, 15 years to write this book. And then, after you finally found yourself, we all put these masks on. We all, wear different roles and hats that maybe aren't as authentic as they should be, or in my case, not even close. But I just want to commend you for coming out and saying, we do reinvent ourselves. We do rediscover ourselves, or discover ourselves maybe for the first time as an adult later in life. It doesn't have to be we're 25, pop out, and we know everything.
I totally agree, and that's I call it the midlife calling. A lot of people call it the midlife crisis, and it's only a crisis if then if you just harden who you think you should be. But when you hit that midlife crisis or calling, and all of a sudden things, all of a sudden you kind of realize that, oh my God, I've become my parents somehow. I've created these problems in my life, or my marriage is falling apart, or my business I'm not feeling like this is the right thing. Something big is missing in my life. Yeah, the courage to change, the courage to step out and do something, is truly innate within all of us. We all need that, and so so you're right. That willingness to say, I'm going to reinvent myself. This time in a different way. The thing is, the funny part about reinventing yourself is that we tend to do it our entire lives. We get rejected as children, or in teenage year. As children, we reject ourselves and try to be what our parents want us to be, or we resist them, or as teenagers, we try to if we fit into a group, a clique, something like that. We get into our 20s and we try to fit in some sort of work, and we're reinventing ourselves all the way along, and it's like trial and error. The problem with life is that if to really find out if something is you or isn't you, it takes like 5 to 10 years. And at some point you get to in your 30s, late 30s, 40s, and you realize, I don't really have another 10 or 15 years to mess around with trying to figure out somebody that I'm not again. So that's my objective in the book, is to give you sort of like some real clarity on what are the steps to discover this sort of like the person I've always been, and how that person would make choices, and then you reinvent yourself, but you're not reinventing yourself. You're remembering yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting because I felt a real synergy with you when I was reading your book. This is Frankie here. Because in my book, Midlife Mojo, I talk about the midlife process or the crisis as really a metamorphosis where we are emerging as our true self. It's that wake-up call, breaking that socialization, our socialized self, and coming into our true self. We, like you said, we don't have time any longer to be that person. We don't want to be that person, but we don't know who we want to be. So your book actually helps give some clarity to finding that process of how will I decide or how will I find out my purpose. We lost everybody.
No, I'm here.
I'm back.
Oh, okay. I heard a glunk and I thought I lost somebody.
No, I got put on hold there for a minute. So
Me too.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're having Skype problems again. But okay. Well,
I totally heard you. I did hear you up till the last second there.
Okay.
And I totally agree. And this was what was true for me. I mean, I had done so many things, and I had been really successful at what I was doing, but it still never felt right. And it wasn't until I discovered these profiles, which weren't like the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram or DISC, which are all sort of behavioral based. I learned these through energy medicine. I went to an energy medicine school where they weren't. This really wasn't the main part of the curriculum at all. They were teaching us how to be healers and how to move energy and work all the levels of the energy field. But what I recognized was that we all, when we get to that midlife crisis, where you called, you break free from the socialized self. You do that by finding some sort of holistic way of doing it, or you buy the red Camaro, or you do something
Right.
that breaks the pattern of sort of being what I thought I was supposed to be, or what my parents thought we were
wanted
supposed
us to be.
or you go do healing work, and then they release some blocks and things like that, and you feel, and for a little while you feel like yourself. The problem is that without having this bridge, so there's like this, we all can feel our soul at times, and we can definitely feel all of our chakras, because they are all of our problems.
Right.
They're all of the issues in our lives. But between those two zones, there's a bridge. There's this purpose.
Rhys, I'm going to have to stop you, and you can talk about our purpose when we come back in just a few minutes, because that's just too big. That's just too big to allow you to go on right now. So
Okay.
Stay tuned. Stay close, everybody. We are going to break, and we will be right back.
Getting warmed up. Frankie Sense and More will be right back after we pay the bills.
Information about book publishing is power. The power to change your authoring life, and the power to change the lives of your readers. So join us for Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. You'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now. As the book shepherd, Dr. Judith Briles is in. And each week, she will include publishing professionals that will reveal tips and secrets to the author's journey. If there is a book in you want to listen, learn, and yes, call in with your questions each week. For more on Judith and what she can do for you, check out her website, thebookshepherd.com. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by Author You and The Book Shepherd, with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
It's words you never heard.
I admit it, I love Coca-Cola. It is truly supernaculum. That means good to the last drop. The slogan "good to the last drop" was actually first used by the Coca-Cola Company in 1908, before eventually becoming the slogan for coffee. Coca-Cola is in fact the world's most recognizable trademark, known by 94% of the world's population. Cuba and Panama were the first two countries to bottle Coca-Cola outside of the United States. When my husband and I were in the Amazon jungle for several weeks, we had a hankering for a Coke. I kid you not, a canoe seemingly appeared out of nowhere loaded with Coca-Cola. I later found out that in Brazil, a local bottler makes regular trips up the Amazon River to deliver Coca-Cola to remote locations. Now that is supernaculum.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and for more Words You Never Heard, check out my podcast at wordsyouneverheard.com.
And we're back. And we're back with Rhys Thomas, Sandra Beck. Diann Mills is here with us. And I'm your host, Frankie Picasso. Rhys, just before we went to break, you were talking about the bridge that your program provides for people from, their socialized self, waking up now, going into their true self. And you're about to explain how that all happens. Well, and then I want to get into the profiles.
Yeah, well, and these are the profiles. That the bridge is the profiles. We all have this deep sense of sort of like somebody we've always been. It's the part of us that doesn't seem to age. My two boys are 23 and 25, and I look at them, I'm like, wow, they've gotten to be old, much older people. And I'm like, but I haven't aged at all. I'm sure everybody else from the outside is like, oh yeah, you have. Yeah. But it's sort of like that part, that ageless part of us. We know we all have a sense of that, but we don't really know what to do with that. It's a soul, and then we all kind of know we have chakras, which are these dimensions of our life where we're doing all these things. We're trying to get through, we're trying to survive, and all of that. But there's this bridge, and when we don't have this bridge, we can do all the work we want on our chakras, but we'll fall back into the old patterns because we don't know what we are supposed to feel like, what the truth is. We just try different things on, and when you don't have a connector between the soul and the chakras, what happens is that it's a huge void in our lives that always feels like there's something missing. And what I found was,
hello, what happened over Rhys?
Well, we've lost Rhys. Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay, there you are. You went off for a minute.
Oh, sorry. That's the part. Am I still on? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're on. We can hear you.
All right. Okay. Well, anyway, so it's I don't know if you heard that. I see the profile sort of like the 100th monkey. It's the piece where we get it, where we say, oh, so this is the part of me that really works, really solid.
Okay. So we have 5 different profile that you have discovered and put together. You have kind of the positive side of that and then the negative side of that as well, which is very interesting. So the light and the dark of the same person, let's say, or the same profile.
Yep.
Can you tell by talking to me or by looking at me what you believe I might be?
Well, I mean, by the nature...
We have bits and pieces of everything, I'm sure.
So by the nature of having such a strong 5th chakra and having your own radio show, charismatic leader has to be one of your top 2.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It is.
And the fact that you chose radio over TV, I'm assuming you chose radio over TV. That's an assumption. But you chose radio over TV. There's a little bit more of a creative side to you, that leans a little bit more toward kind of like you've got the knowledgeable achiever in there, but it's going to have sort of like you want to have the radio show host part of you likes to have things a little bit more flowing. Whereas on TV, it's much more the show. It's like everything's mapped and organized and structured. And so on radio, you can be more flexible and fluid. And so there's a part of you that doesn't mind, even though the charismatic leader likes to have it run your way, you like the fluidity of that.
Yeah, I like flexibility. It's probably one of it's in my top 5 values. But you're right. Knowledgeable achiever and charismatic leader were actually tied. And then at 14, and then at 12, the emotional intelligence and the team player were also tied. So it's kind of interesting. And I think that I'm going to bet that everybody on this call shares at least one in their top 2. I have a feeling, and I know what Diann is, and if I can share Diann.
Go ahead.
Hey, Diann.
Yeah, Diann is this author, and she belongs to all that stuff that I told you about that she did, and she is her number 1 is a knowledgeable achiever.
Okay.
And what was your number 2, Diann? Hang on.
A 1.
A 1. Okay, yeah, the creative idealist. And Sandra, you said that you were.
Yeah, I'm the charismatic leader, and then my secondary is teamwork.
Oh, okay.
And knowledgeable achiever. I think they were all right close. I can't remember exactly, but they were all within a point of each other.
And for charismatic leaders, it's often, charismatic leaders all are natural, actors, actresses. They can play all the roles, and when you look at your life, you say, well, yeah, I team play, I do this, I do that. And the fact that, Frankie, you have a show on right now where it's where you've brought on, four people. It's like there's 4 people on this one, and you're managing the group. That when you said that you have a, emotional intelligence specialist and team player, you and Sandra probably have very similar profiles, right?
I think so. Yeah, we're very similar.
You both run shows. You both really do it for the people. You both, and so, but it comes from the charismatic leader and the quality of your charismatic leader. You like some creativity, so you've got the higher side of the sort of the thinking side of the knowledgeable achiever. So you bring some creativity. It's not didactic. It's sort of like bringing that sort of structure to it. But then you also, that secondary element of the team player in there is where you're going to be doing it for the people and really helping people and also supporting people like myself or whoever and Diann share our mission.
Achievements, yeah. But what was interesting in the book, you talk about that the charismatic leader has a body type, the hourglass figure. Definitely, that's me. You also say that you like to do 3 to 4 years in a job and then you move on. That's been me. But I always thought that was my Gemini in me that did that. I got bored. I like to learn. I like to learn new things. I'm always, but Diann's a knowledgeable achiever and a creative idealist. Like, what would her body type be? And I bet you it's probably spot on.
Well, the knowledgeable achiever and creative idealist is going to be lean, strong.
Yeah, that's her.
Like long distance runner type of energy, maybe a triathlete.
Diann?
This is funny. I'm 5'2" and barely 110.
Yeah.
I do I type on my treadmill so I can get in 6 miles a day. I'm up at 5. You nailed me.
Right.
How interesting is that? And so what else with the knowledgeable achiever and her good side and the dark side? What would that be?
Yes, let me see the dark side.
Well, the dark side of the knowledgeable achiever is that you have the worst inner critic of anybody. It's like no matter what you do, it's like, I should have known, I should have done better, I could have done better. And so even when you're more successful than anybody else around you, you don't take like a week's vacation and say, or a month's vacation and say, I freaking nailed it. You say, oh boy, we got to get back to work because we could have done better than that. And so,
yes.
And whether it's you or we or whatever, it's like you just don't give yourself, in the shadow side, you're just punishing of yourself to be perfect.
Oh, yeah, you nailed me again.
Yeah, you said that you don't like downtime, that downtime would be a waste of time, so you have to always be doing something.
Oh, yes. Husband likes to record certain TV programs, and he wants me to watch those but I can't do that. I have to sit there with my laptop and work.
I do that, too. I thought that was a Gemini trait.
Well, and keep in mind that the horoscope, and all is. It's part of it. I mean, the profiles are part of that. But that system are basically when you have to take in every star and planet in the universe to try to figure out who you are. You can do it, and there's people that can do it. But I thought it's just so much. It all ends in your body right now, right? It's like what's happening in your body right now is representative of exactly how the stars are moving. So rather than looking up at the stars and figuring out what's happening in my life, I'd rather just look at your life and say, this is what's happening in your life. And when these things are happening, this means that these are the qualities. This is why you have this nervous system you have, the body you have. And this is the difference between my work and Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or any of the others or DISC is that these are, because the whole system is your purpose. Of course, the first chakra, which is your body, your nervous system, everything, where you're born, how you're born, all of that stuff, you get in your star chart, is true. But keep in mind, you're birthing yourself in each moment right now. Right. And in each moment, this is your purpose. No, this is your purpose. No, right here, this is your purpose. And are you able to experience that right now, or do you have to go check with your star chart or your this or your some other thing? And so my whole purpose of doing this work, and I found that energy medicine is really, and spiritual growth is really getting people from thinking in the future and the past and get them into the present moment. And that's been true since the beginning of time. It's like people are just crazy, stuck in some other place rather than right here. But to do that, the most important thing you need to do to be in the present moment is to be able to look in the mirror and say, I like that thing in the mirror. I like that, and I don't know what it is, but it seems to be wanting this, liking that, and I'm enjoying this process of being alive rather than getting in the brain and trying to figure it all out.
The other part that was interesting about Charismatic Leader was that you operate from your intuition rather than the facts in the head, and that is so true of me because I would rather go with my gut than with whatever anybody tells me, because I'm going to read that first, and maybe that's because it's developed and I've learned to trust it. I don't know, but that's kind of interesting.
Every charismatic leader has that development. It depends on which way they go. Remember, charismatic leaders are warriors by nature. And influencers, so they have to literally be able to walk into a room and read everybody in the room immediately, or read a situation or a life situation, and so they have these gut reactions where they'll actually start responding before they're conscious of what they're even doing.
Let me ask you this: Diann is an achiever, and she woke up today and she says, "I'm a knowledgeable achiever. What's my life purpose?"
How do
you find it out?
She just checks her list.
Meaning
she's already made the list. Yesterday she figured out what she was going to do today, and her purpose is.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Her purpose is to follow through and make it more efficient each day.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So she's a list maker.
Right. Yours is to wake up and decide, am I even going to bother doing what I did yesterday again today?
Yeah.
Probably. And if I am, it's got to be a lot of fun. It's got to have passion in it.
Yeah, I hate doing the same stuff.
It's like just so right on, Rhys. I was in the bathtub last night, going through and then I get up this morning and I'm like, I don't want to do any of that. What excites me for today?
Right. It's like, so I've got 4 radio shows. Maybe not today.
You also had 2 kids puking, so
an old man. They had the old man.
Wasn't a good day. Yeah, it wasn't a good day for you.
Right, exactly. Being a mother today, no, not today.
No, not so much.
Well, when we come back, we're going to have a look more at what Diann Mills does, and we'll let Rhys comment on that. And we're going to be going to break in just a few short minutes. But I do want to send healing back to Sandra's home and everybody else's home out there who needs a bit of healing, and you can share in that, Rhys, because you were both energy healers as well.
Yes, fire away, guys.
Because we all need a little bit of that. So stick around.
Heck no, we're just getting warmed up. Frankie Sense and More will be right back after we pay the bills.
Is there more living for you to do? Yes. Start living inspired. Be here for Living Inspired with Tricia Goyer, Thursday afternoons at 4, 3 p.m. Central on TogiNet.com. Tricia will dig deep into topics that matter most to women, inspiring women to make a change in their own lives and to make a difference in the world, and maybe even deep within their own hearts. Tricia is a wife, mom, speaker, family expert, and author of 24 books. For more information on Tricia and Living Inspired, go to her website, TriciaGoyer.com. That's TriciaGoyer.com. Tricia's vision is to be the voice of hope and possibility for women of all ages. Her intention is to serve ordinary women by encouraging extraordinary things with God's help. Tricia expresses real life, real hope for real women. Is there more living for you to do? Yes. Start living inspired. Living Inspired with Tricia Goyer. Thursday afternoons at 4, 3 p.m. Central on TogiNet.com.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
One of the supreme advantages I had by growing up in the Pacific Northwest was the abundance of apples. I love apples, whether they're Granny Smith, Macintosh, Gala, or Red Delicious. And at only 55 calories per small apple, they are a fabulous tool for weight loss. Apples pack 3 grams of fiber and help you feel fuller longer because the fiber expands in your stomach, so it takes less food to satisfy your hunger. They are easy to take with you, so you can enjoy the flavor of apples anywhere, anytime. Discovery Health calls apples a jewel of healthy eating. They are loaded with vitamin C and other antioxidants. Regardless of the type of apple you prefer, apples are a perfect addition to your weight loss plan. So grab an apple every time you head out the door and enjoy this fabulous fruit. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
And we're back, and I promised to introduce you again to Diann Mills. We gave her a little bit of an introduction at the beginning, and I'm going to tell you now that her latest book, Deadlock, that I finished reading last week, was just fantastic. It really is a wonderful book. Her titles have appeared on the CBA and the ECPA bestseller list. She's won 2 Christie Awards, been a finalist for the Rita Daphne du Maurier's Inspirational Reader's Choice and the Carroll Award contest. Quite the achievement. She's also co-director of the Author Roadmap with social media specialist Edie Melson, where she continues her passion of helping other writers be successful. And she's also a speaker, and she goes to writing workshops around the country. Diann, you love to help people. I know that's one of your passions.
It is. Yes, serious people.
Yeah.
Serious
writers.
Serious. I think that's the key word there. With my personality type, as it has already been analyzed, I want to make sure that my efforts, my passion, are used in a way that are respected. And that doesn't mean I'm going to write your book, but that does mean that I will help you get the tools so that you can write your book.
Perfect. Your book, Deadlock, I really enjoyed it. And what I liked about it the most, I think, was it was a really interesting concept. You're the strong character, the lead special agent, Bethany Sanchez. She's tough. She's moral. She's dealing with diabetes. I don't know. Is that something that you have in your family that you know about? Or is it just something that you made up?
It is something that I made up because I wanted to show that not every heroine has this perfect body, and that we all have struggles and weaknesses and flaws and challenges no matter what our occupation is.
Okay. And her partner had a reputation as a ladies' man, and he had recently become a Christian, and I know that that's really important to you. Your faith is very important to you. But he was holding back on telling people about that, the people in his life. And why was that? Why did he not want to share?
To me, the biggest reason was, okay, this is just one more thing that Thatcher is going to put on us, that I don't believe it. You can't tell me that somebody like him can change because he's been such a womanizer. And so he was hesitant to spout it. It's that show, don't tell. He wanted someone to say to him, okay, what's different about you? You're not acting like you used to. You don't have the same habits that you had before.
And you know what was really interesting about Bethany was that her family was very protective of the youngest son, the only son, I guess, who had gone to jail and had done a lot of bad things in his life, and yet they were ostracizing her because she had helped put him in jail, and kind of the tough love concept rather than, and they said, you're not part of our family anymore, go away, we don't like you, because our baby wasn't babied, and yet he was really not a good guy.
No, not at all. And I have seen that in families where the youngest, especially if the youngest is the only boy or the only girl, it's as though this is their dream child, and that child can do no wrong, and they're wearing blinders. They don't see that they are molding that child into an adult that will never be able to contribute to society.
So, Rhys, let me ask you, in these characters that she's building, could she take these profiles and make them more identifiable to the people, to the readers, let's say?
Well, keep in. I always, when you read, you want to read about the dirt. You want to read. If everybody got fixed in a novel, it wouldn't be any fun.
Right.
So part of it is sort of like, it talks about the real human condition. And of course, almost always when you're talking about people in novels, the only interesting people that you would want to write about are the charismatic leaders, because they are either a wonderful example or a terrible warning. And they can't do any other one. It's like you don't want to read about the mom who's just nice and helping and doing this sort of stuff. So you want to read about the son who's like tearing things apart, and the mom's being too nice to him, and and you can make any type of statement about that you want. But yeah, I mean, truly, when we go to movies, we don't want to see, maybe if it's a romance, you want to see a little bit of the emotional intelligence specialist in there, but we really want to see that charismatic leader who was the womanizer, who was the hard, manipulator, to just have them fall into their core quality and truly be so in love with someone that they would die for that person. We want to see that happen on the screen. We want to see that in the book. We want to see that person that could do anything, could be a murderer if they wanted to be, really transform themselves, because that's sort of like the inspiration, right, that allows us to do it ourselves.
It would be interesting. Like, you have a psychopath in there. and the psychopath is really the dark personality side of this person, who could, if they turned around and took all that bad and turned it into good, would be amazing, probably. So all that energy that goes into being bad, if we channel that into something good, that would be great. I found it really interesting that, you went to the FBI Citizens Cadet Program. You're very dedicated to this.
Yeah, yes, I am. I believe in research. That's where it all stems from. I have been to southern Sudan. I have ridden the line with the Border Patrol. I have talked to treasure hunters. And when the time came some years ago that I wanted to write an FBI book, I just called the FBI office, which is not too far from me, said I wanted to speak to the media coordinator, and we became friends.
Wow.
And so when I am talking to her, okay, how can I learn more? How can I be more aware of what the various divisions are, and what do you do, and how do you go about it? She said, you know what? I'm recommending you to our Citizens Cadet Academy. So I took the 7-week course that was absolutely phenomenal. Every week for 3 hours, I was introduced. There were a group of us. There were 30. And we were introduced to agents who actually worked the specific divisions, whether it was the bombers or violent crime or human trafficking, children's pornography. And so you not only saw how they felt, how passionate they were about the division they worked in, but you also learned how they went about it. And it was just incredibly interesting. On the final day of the last session, we were able to go to a rural area outside of Houston where the SWAT team, I started to say rehearses. That's trains. Really trains, thank you. And we're also the FBI agents train also. So we got to use their weapons. We got to use simulators, and it was just incredible. It was like being there, getting into these huge tanks and looking at the mobile equipment and watching them blow up things. It was just really cool.
Well, Diann, I'm going to pop in here. This is Sandra. I think it's so much deeper than that. I went to journalism school at Northwestern. I was in their not only their research and writing program, but their creative development program. And one of the things they taught me then was, if your mother says she loves you, check it out. Meaning, check your facts, check your things. But there's an authenticity to your writing that can't be denied, because what you're talking about, like when you go and you experience these things and you're like, yeah, it's cool and everything. But what you're doing is you're seeing it, you're hearing it, you're feeling it, you're tasting it, you're touching it. And so much about good writing, which I think you're a great writer. You're my eyes and ears. You need to tell me what it tastes like. You need to tell me what it feels like. If you shoot a gun, you're not just shooting a gun. Do you feel the shock that hits your chest? Do you feel the kickback in your shoulder? Those are details that you put into your writing, your rich sensorial writing that you really can only have by experiencing it, because there's an authenticity that happens in writing, and I really get frustrated when I read somebody's book and there's something inauthentic about it.
Yes.
You can tell that person never shot a gun. Or I remember as a little girl, I grew up with a lot of Harlequin romance because they were based in Rochester, New York, and somebody wrote a romance novel about my little hometown of Canandaigua and how they rode the roller coaster at Roseland, and they made it this giant thing. And I'm like, Roseland's like a drop in the bucket at the top of our lake with the Ghost Riders, from 1924, and it's a teeny little roller coaster. And I was so frustrated, and I wrote to Harlequin, I'm like, don't put real settings in your books if you've never been there.
Exactly.
Yeah, when somebody says, oh yeah, I drove down the street that you were talking about, and I was looking for this bad guy because you said he lived on this street, and things like that, which are really, really fun. Another thing, one of the books in the series, Deadlock, and the one before that was Double Cross, and the first one was Firewall. And in Firewall, I opened it up by bombing one of the sections of Houston's International Airport. And I needed to know, okay, how far back that somebody is just flat out dead. How far back, does it burst their lungs? What does it do? What about their hearing? And so by contacting my friend at the FBI, I chatted with a bomb specialist who filled me in on that kind of information, which I would never, well, I'm not going to say never, but because he had done it, because he was quick to tell me about what he does. And let's face it, we all like to talk about what we do. I could get more inside information, and it's just, it's just fun. Like if I came to you and I said, okay, what do you like most about your job? What do you like the least? What is the one thing that would keep you awake at night? Those are the kinds of things that I want to know, because those are the lives of my characters.
And that's what makes you a great writer. And that's why I prefer to read a book and see a movie, and then, or overseeing the movie and then reading the book, because, I've already flushed out those characters in my head. I know what they look like and who they should be. And oftentimes I feel like they're miscast. I don't like it, because they should look the way I think that they should look, I think. But we're about to go to a break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking more with Diann Mills and Rhys Thomas and Sandra Beck, because we got a great crew here today. This is really exciting stuff, really interesting work that everybody is doing. Thank you. Stay tuned.
We're just getting warmed up. Frankie Sense and More will be right back after we pay the bills.
Secret Cuisines and Sacred Rituals is a quest, a place, and a feast. Join host Vilasi Venkatachalam every week to explore myths, mystique, old medicine, and brilliant modern solutions through a dazzling kaleidoscope of cuisines, cultures, and cures. This is the place where tribes gather, strangers and familiars, to be memory keepers and makers of our evolving, enduring, evergreen, spoken legacy of wisdom and ingenuity. In Vilasi's words, when we do old things in new ways and new things in old ways, we paint with an inspired palette, weave our own healing traditions, and become our own guru. Vilasi is a troubadour of secret cuisines and sacred rituals. She collects stories of wisdom, ingenuity, and grit. She believes wellness and transformation happen when you stand at the threshold of delight and discovery. She displays her hidden penchant for drama when she leads the safari at the supper club. Her favorite pastime is to extol the marvels of cuisines, cultures, and cures. To her audience in workplaces, seminars, and salons, her mantra is, be your own guru. She is a biochemist, botanist, and alchemist who likes to churn delightful, useful things from a brew of art and science, ancient and evolving, old medicine, and new cures. Join Vilasi every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here on the Woohoo Radio Network.
It's words you never heard.
You know someone who is a noisy eater? They make all kinds of disturbing sounds when they eat. like slurping their coffee and crunching their cereal? Did you know there's a word for eating noisily, disturbing others around you? It's called yaffling. Do you have a child who's a picky eater? My son Johnny never wanted his peas to touch the mashed potatoes. But as Mark Twain said, part of the fun in life is to eat what you like and let the foods fight it out inside. There's a word for a person who eats only a few kinds of foods: olophagus. The most remarkable thing about my mother is that for 20 years she served the family nothing but leftovers. The original meal has never been found.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and for more Words You Never Heard, check out my podcast at wordsyouneverheard.com.
Well, hey, we stuck around, and hopefully you did too, because we're back here with the gang, and we're all here. Yeah. So we were just talking with Diann about her characters, and offline we were talking about the character development through using Rhys's book, Discover Your Potential, or Discover Your Purpose, I'm sorry. And I find it interesting now that we all know about them, that if we can go out into that world and just, like you said, it's not like an anagram, and it's not like, EFTJs or anything like that, but can I use this in order to speak to somebody in the way that they're going to hear me now, Rhys?
Right, and that's we talk about just understanding who you are and be able to watch people in the movies and say, oh my God, yeah, that's that character. But yeah, each of these core qualities within us, we know that there are feelers in the world, and there are thinkers, creative people, and there's caretakers, and there's achievers, and then there's charismatic leaders, and you three represent the charismatic leaders and the achievers in the world, and you motivate each one very differently. You motivate a charismatic leader by saying, this will be awesome. It'll be totally, you're going to change the world. We're going to inspire everybody. And we tell it, and, inspire the knowledge.
Hello? Did we lose Rhys?
Yeah, we lost him. He'll be back.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
There he is.
Right?
We lost you for a minute there, Rhys.
But you're here.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Talked in front of you on the air behind your back while you couldn't hear us.
Oh.
But everybody else could.
I'm sorry. Well, anyway. So anyway, by knowing what someone's profile is, you know how to speak to them in their language, because we often have our biggest conflicts in our relationships because we try to speak our language to them and they don't speak that language. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know whether you heard this or not. I was saying that the three of you represent the charismatic leaders and the knowledgeable achievers in the world, and you two, the charismatic leaders, also have a really strong team playing quality. So if I tell you that we're going to lead and make a huge difference in people's lives, you two are totally in. And if talking with the knowledgeable achiever, talking with Diann, if I can teach you something that will dovetail with everything else you've learned and enhance it and change the whole structure of how you build things from here on, you're totally in. And when you talk like that to people, and are able to speak their language, they can hear you. But if I said to any one of you, I'm really just having a feeling, and can we just talk about our feelings for a while? And you'd all be like, oh, can we move to the next guest? Not that you can't talk about that, but there's this deeper motivation that really kicks butt for you.
Well, talk about wanting to be world-changing and changing the world. That's what I'm all about, and I know Sandra's all about that. And Diann, you touched on it, your book about the Sudan and the Lost Boys. And I interviewed the Lost Boys many years ago, Jacob Atem, who went back and built a medical center, which I think is just phenomenal. He ended up in the University of Michigan and living with a Michigan family. But the Lost Boys, the people of the Sudan and their struggles is very important to you. And so this is a mission as well, right? You work with a charity or somebody?
Yes, I do. I work with Abraham Niall. He was a young man that I met when I was writing Lost Boy No More, and just had such incredible respect and admiration for his commitment and his determination, and he's definitely the charismatic, whatever you need, leader. I'm there, and totally unselfish. And in our time together, by the time we were finished with this book, he called me Mom, and I was calling him Son, and I've helped to support him ever since.
Wow.
And then also when I went to Sudan, I met a woman who was working with another ministry in another area of Sudan, and we became very close. So both Rosemary and Abraham are very dear to me. They are family to me because of what they do and their commitment. It's amazing to me, the Mother Teresa types, because I don't want to say I'm selfish, but I have to analyze everything. And those who just react and do, I'm envious of their ability to reach out to others for their betterment and putting their own needs aside. I wish I was more like that.
Oh, I think you're like that.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yes.
All knowledgeable achievers wish they were charismatic leaders. Because they actually know what to do. They just can't always pull the trigger because they have to analyze it out to the nth degree. And the charismatic leader gets about 1/10 of what the knowledgeable achiever figures out and just says, "Hey, it looks good. Let's go for it."
Yeah, I just can't be bothered to be an analyzer. You know, a little bit of it, and then that's it. I lose interest, and I go, "Yeah, okay,
Right.
It feels good. Going to do it."
So that's,
Right, you analyze enough till you pull the trigger. That's what I
awesome.
do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But
You get into that.
for Diann, you know, she writes about, and the things that she writes about she gives this amazing structure for how to actually work and help the charismatic leaders find more structure and focus and direction. So she gives so all of her research gives us all the pathway to achievement, which the charismatic leader's not going to do. The charismatic leader writers are going to write from sort of like, it's going to get you all worked up and all passionate and angry or whatever, and then it's just going to be over, and you're going to be like, well, what happened? It was great, but it's over.
We lost him again.
Skype is just beaten up on Rhys today.
Oh my gosh, it is.
It's only Rhys. It's not the rest of us.
And you got a show coming up, Sandra, and I think he's your guest.
I know it's going to
So that's why I'm silent.
Was I off again?
Yeah.
Are you hitting your mic?
It's got to be Skype on me. I'm plugged in and everything. So anyway.
That's I got to say something about Diann, because I want to make sure that we mention this. Not that it's that important, but it's kind of fun. Diann, you say that you're a coffee snob. You roast your own coffee beans.
Yes.
That's funny. I think that's great.
Well, you know, I love Starbucks, and I just get aggravated at myself as to why do I have to have Starbucks? You know, I love the flavor, but why can't I do this myself? And so I was in Florida, and I was sitting at this table. It was at an awards banquet, and this man said, "Oh yeah, I just closed my coffee shop." So I'm just, wow. You know, I'm just focused right then. So he gave me this website, and by the way, it's Sweet Maria's. Weird name for a website.
Yeah.
And so then I'm back home in Houston, and I'm at the grocery, and I'm looking at all these different kinds of beans and where they come from and all this kind of thing. And this woman out of nowhere says, "You know, I'm from the Philippines, and my family has a coffee plantation, and my brother has his own coffee shop in New York City." So I said, "Where do you get your beans?" And she said, "Sweet Maria's."
Wow.
So I went on this website, and it's like a university. I mean, from small to big, it has all these great videos, and I kept watching them over and over again and realized I could get started with the Air popcorn popper. And so I'm just trying out all these beans and have a little journal. Of course, you would know I'd do that.
Yeah.
And writing down how I roast them, and if I mix them, what brands I mix. I'm just having a wonderful time, so that eventually I will have my own brand of coffee called Adventure Coffee to go with my...
Oh, how fun is that?
Yeah, I mean...
I got to make sure, Diann, I'm going to cut in because I want to make sure that I get everybody's websites in and everything. So you're www.Diann, which is Diann Mills.com. And Rhys, give us your website so we can make sure we can get your book. And
well, to get the book, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm cutting out. To get my book, it's the book is called Discover Your Purpose, and if you go to discoveryourpurposebook.com, you not only can buy the book through Amazon on there, but you can also get a number of audio and video downloads of me teaching about the profiles in various different formats. So you get some bonuses on there, which are totally worth doing. So if you go to discoveryourpurposebook.com, if you want to find out more about my school, it's Rhys, R-H-Y-S, ThomasInstitute.com.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So we get some bonuses if we go to your site. And yep. Diann, what do you have coming up? Deadlock just came out?
Yes, Deadlock just came out. I've been working all morning on the line edits for the next book. It'll be the first book in a new series and this one would be called Deadly Encounter, set in Houston. It's what happens when a genetically engineered disease breaks out in Houston. And just more suspense, more romantic suspense with the FBI working with the CDC. And
wow.
I just love suspense. I love showing people that there are good guys out there as well as guys who are not so good.
Well, and we appreciate that in your books. And I don't want to go without mentioning the folks from San Bernardino yesterday, the tragedy that happened there yesterday, as our hearts and prayers go out to their families. Another horrific event again. And hopefully, we can raise the consciousness and stop all of this nonsense from happening. And everybody keep on your positive side and let's do it. We can do this together.
We can.
We can. Living in fear is not the answer.
I spoke to a wonderful woman in Germany yesterday who is teaching the Syrian refugees German as they come in, and she says, there's nothing to fear. She goes, I don't fear them. They're just lovely people, one-on-one, just lovely people. And they are in internment camps. I guess Germany has a method of distribution when the time comes. But the most important thing is for them to learn the language so that they can assimilate and become part of society. And really, you have to look at everybody as a human being.
Absolutely. And I think that no matter what your faith is, I'm a Christian, which you have already explained to your audience, it's love one another. It's not, we have got to.
That's a great way to go out, Diann. Love one another. That's it, folks. Thank you so much for joining me today. Frankie Says comes back next week.
Thank you.
Love one another. Thank you.
It was fun.
See on the beat, Hit Rash Production.
She not you, she the one way to turn the world.